All right, welcome to Event Domination. It is Thursday, and if you are living in the United States of America, happy 4th of July. We had Canada Day here just a couple days ago. So happy 4th to you, to our friends south of the border. All right, so today we are going to be covering how to scale your event from 100 people to 1,000 people. Now, this is a subject that's very near and dear to my heart because running my conference has literally changed my life. I remember the first year we started from zero. I had no list. I had no event track record, and lockdowns had just started. So the whole story behind my conference was I was in my then girlfriend's condo, now fiance, but we were in her condo watching Shark Tank, and Kevin O'Leary was absolutely grinding this guy on the valuation of his business. And so I turned to Darcy and I said, hey, listen, I want to run a real estate conference and I want to have Kevin O'Leary as a speaker. And there were a couple of things behind it. Number one, I was very disappointed in terms of like how the events that I had attended were run and like the feeling of it. And I thought, honestly, without any experience, I thought that I could do a better job. So I decided to launch this conference. And so the first year we hit 1,000 people. Second year we hit 2,500 people, and we haven't looked back since. And it really has been a game changer for like everything I've been doing in terms of business. It's opened up these incredible opportunities. On my cell phone, I can text people now that I had only dreamed of being able to contact, and now it's like a text message away. Well, even yesterday I was on the phone with somebody. Very, very, very successful, business owner who runs a company, used to be a part owner of a professional sports team. And now they're looking for help from us in terms of running their event. So like that's a connection and somebody with this amazing story of growing their business and scaling it to a very, very large number. I never would have had access to if I didn't run my event. But if you're running an event right now, maybe you're running these small workshops, maybe 100 people, something like that. Today, I really want to just uncover what it takes to scale to 1,000 people, because we've done it. We went from zero to scaling to 1,000 and then onward. So we've talked the talk and walked the walk. So let me wheel over the TV here. And we'll rock and roll. We'll bust out the iPad. I'm actually liking this iPad thing, Robbie, rather than the whiteboard. I think it's pretty slick. All right. So the very first thing I wanted to talk about was like why you actually need to scale your event. And so we've been consulting with events for let's call it a couple years now. Because what happened was people saw our rapid growth with our conference. And a lot of other events would reach out to help from us and said, like, hey, listen, Seth, like we've been stuck at this number. Can you help us? Can you take a look and help us scale? And that's something we've been doing, I guess you could call it on the side more or less, in terms of like going in to other events, assessing where they need help, implementing our systems that we use on our end. And it's really helped a lot of people change their events around. And the big thing I've realized is, small events, they usually fold up. And there's a couple of reasons to it. Like number one, if you're a small event, you don't have the revenue you need to scale, right? Because every year you're going to have to attract a new audience. Because if you're selling to the same audience every single year, you're going to have attrition. There's drop off. People move out of your space. After 3 times, some people are like, oh, I don't want to go. I've seen it and heard it all again. So you always have to have this new influx of people. And that takes dollars, right? That takes staff. You need revenue to actually fulfill the event and bring the speakers, get the space, all that type of stuff. So if you're small and you're running a 50-person, 100-person event, you don't have very much revenue. So that makes it really, really hard to scale and invest in the event to make it a top-notch event because you just don't have the money available, right? So that makes it really hard. The second thing is, when you're looking at sponsors and bringing in speakers, I'll tell you what, like Kevin O'Leary would not show up for 100 people, right? But when I was talking about, 1,000 people, 2,500 people. So our second year we had A-Rod come in, Grant Cardone came in. This year we had Robert Herjavec, we had Jordan Belfort, we had Elena Cardone. Next year, we've got some really cool people lined up. I can't say anything yet. But when you have the scale, now you're able to go out and attract people like that because you have the mass. Leading up to this year, 2024, in terms of speakers, we were talking with some pretty impressive people. And it's always better to start the conversation with, hey, like we have, a couple thousand people, 3,000, like whatever the number is, right? Hey, we've got this number of people coming. If it's a big number, it helps. Now they're listening. If you say, hey, I've got 50 people, do you want to come out? No, I don't have the time, right? Because the speaker wants to spread their message. But like with our event, scaling has been probably the best thing I ever did, because we went from 0 to 1,000, 1,000 to 2,500 and onwards. And that put us in that position where, hey, now we've got the mass that we need, and we're able to drive that revenue in. That's going to help us fulfill the event and keep growing it so it's sustainable and scalable into the future. But this whole thing starts with knowing your audience. So with your audience, because it's like your audience is your customer in the event space. And you have to know your customer in any business. So the very first thing, like I remember going back to our very first year, I thought I knew our audience, but I didn't really. And chances are, if you're running a smaller event, if you're running like 100-person event, you're probably pretty niche at that point. And you're probably running like a local or regional type of event where people are going to come in from within a 45-minute drive. They're going to come in and see you. That's very, very niche. If you have to scale, if you want to scale and get all the benefits of going to 1,000 people plus, you have to really dive into, well, who's the best fit to get their bums in the seats for your event? So you have to know what their pain points are. Right? What are the big problems and challenges that your audience is facing? Because if you know what their pain points are, now you know the content that you have to produce to attract those people. And then you have to know what their goals are. What do they want to do? Like once they figure out once they figure out and get through that pain that they're currently experiencing, what do they want to achieve? What track do they want to be on with their business, whatever niche you're in, right? I don't care if it's the gym space. Hey, where do they want to take their gym? I don't care if it's in the accounting space. Hey, where do they want to take their firm? Or the real estate space for that matter. Hey, what type of portfolio do they want to build? You have to know their pain points and their goals. And the best way to do that is use survey data. So our first year, we sent out a lot of surveys to people, and we had incentives for them to fill out the survey. Because when you're starting an event from scratch, and even with a 100-person event, honestly, I would start from scratch, right? Because that event, the way you're built at 100 people is not the same model that's going to take you to 1,000 people. That model is going to break very, very quickly. So you like when we're working with events, we've worked with some smaller, workshops where there are a couple hundred people. We basically, rework their event, go back to the drawing board with everything, because a couple hundred people is very different from a 1,000-person event. So you want to kind of start from scratch. But with surveys and getting to know your audience, if you're a 100-person event right now, you've got 100 people who have shown up. Perfect. Send them a survey. You want to ask a whole bunch of questions. So here's some of the questions that we ask for our audience. Number one, hey, what's the number one challenge you're experiencing right now in your business? Like, where do you want to go? What's your goals? What's your dreams? And for us, we rather, for the pain points, we've got it narrowed in now. So we have drop down multiple choice, because like we know the top 5 pain points for our audience. But at the start in the survey, when you email it out to people, you're going to leave it open, like open text. Now it's going to take a lot more work to sift through that and collate it and and assign it to categories. But you want to give people, because you're starting from scratch, you want to give people the space to give you as much information as possible and explain it in their own words. So now once you spend the hours sifting through all of that data, now you get an idea, now this is how our audience is explaining their challenge. Because maybe you use different words than the audience does. So you want to make sure everything's congruent, and you want to make sure you're communicating on the same level. So leave that open space, leave that long answer format for people in your surveys. Big pain point. What do you want to accomplish? Ask them, like, what kind of speakers do you want to hear? Like, who would you suggest for a keynote speaker? And you want to have your audience give very specific feedback. So I remember our second year, we had like Grant Cardone was a top winner for somebody who people wanted us to bring in. So we brought in Grant, right? The first year, I wanted Kevin O'Leary because I wanted to meet him, right? And then we brought in A-Rod. And actually the story behind A-Rod, I got a lot of hate online for having A-Rod at our conference because everybody wrote him off as just a rich baseball guy. But nobody knew that he started investing in real estate when he was in the minors. And now he's scaled A-Rod Corp. Like this guy runs a tight ship. He knows what he's doing. But a lot of people just wrote him off, and it's the internet. Everybody's a keyboard warrior. But we got a lot of hate on like comments and direct messages because everybody was ripping on A-Rod. But then honestly, like I love talking with him on stage. Like in my opinion, it was one of the top talks that we had in 2023 because like he definitely knows what he's doing, and he started from the bottom and worked his way up. But you need the survey audience to get the right people in the seats. So we talked about pain points. We talked about goals. We asked them who they want to hear. Now, here's probably the $1 million question that you can ask is, what is the name of a session that you want to hear? So your audience is going to tell them what types of talks and topics that are important to them. And now you can actually work your entire event around what your audience actually wants. Because the problem with a lot of events, especially small, when they're having trouble scaling. So let's say you're an event that's being stuck at 100 people for the past like 3 times you've run it, like for the past 3 years. You're probably not capturing what the market is looking for because you haven't been able to grow. So go back to the market and ask the market exactly what they're looking for and deliver that. It's not too complicated, right? Like don't overthink this thing. Ask people what their challenges are, ask people what their goals are, ask them who they want to see, and ask them like, hey, like what kind of format do you want? What kind of topics? Like what's the name of a session you want to hear? And deliver that. That's going to allow you to produce an event that is going to have that appeal to your target market. But surveys are so necessary. You can't just run an event based on what you think is best. Because I can tell you, I had my own preconceptions when I was working on my first conference. Like Katie and I were working on this thing. I thought I knew what the audience wanted. And that's why I said at the start of this, I thought I knew my audience the first year, but I didn't really. And as you're scaling, you're going to learn more and more and more about your audience and what they like, what they don't like, what's really important to them, what's not important, like what's the main pain point, what drives them to take action, like what are they really looking for. It's a learning curve, like it's a work in progress. But the best thing you can do if you're looking to go from 100 people to 1,000, you have to get the data. You have to have something tangible that you can look at. Now you can always improve those data. You can always tweak the questions and make them better, but at least you have something to start with. Because unless you're going off of numbers, you're just working off of fluff and you're just making things up, pulling it out of thin air, and it never works out. So get the survey data, okay? So once you know your audience, how do you actually bring your message and your product to that audience? And now we get into the topic of marketing. Okay, so let me erase this. All right, so now let's talk about marketing. And I have spent millions of dollars doing this type of stuff, learning the hard way. Because here's the thing with events. You have a lot of ad agencies who are really good at running ad campaigns and managing the advertising and marketing for e-com, right? Or for coaching products, or for whatever it is. I have yet to find an ad agency who specializes and does a really good job at selling event tickets. So my first year, I worked with a number of different ad agencies who all talked a big talk about being able to sell tickets, but once they started working, they didn't sell shit. Like they didn't sell anything, because selling a ticket is very different from an Amazon store or a high ticket coaching program funnel, like a book a call funnel, whatever it is. Very, very different. And so basically my lesson learned was You have to bring everything in-house. So if you're running a 100-person event, you have to understand your marketing. You can't hire it out to somebody. And if you're not marketing, you have to. Because there's no way your audience is going to learn about your event until you start marketing. You have to take your message and bring it to the people, or else they're not going to show up. There's too many other things for somebody to do that besides show up to your event. So you're fighting this constant battle for attention from your audience, right? Because if it's a nice day outside, maybe they can go for a walk instead of attending your event. There's kids' birthday parties, there's sports events, there's holidays, there's vacations, there's work, there's stress. Hey, I just want to sit on my phone all day and veg, or hey, I just want to go through Netflix all day. I want to Netflix and chill rather than going to your event. There's all these excuses and reasons why somebody won't show up. And so you have to be very specific in terms of how you advertise your event to make sure you get people to actually take action and show up, because there's nothing worse than having an empty room and no audience in there after all the effort you've put into it. So with marketing, it all starts with the brand, right? What kind of brand do you want to build for your audience? Or sorry, what kind of brand do you want to build for your event? With my conference, my biggest frustration when I went to, we're in the real estate space. My biggest frustration was I would go to this event and all the events would look the same. They were all in the same hotel ballroom. They all had these round tables. They all had 2 screens beside this little stage, and the speaker would be at the podium, and you would have lunch in the hallway, and everybody wore these big name tags. That is what literally every single real estate event looks like in my space, and I hated it. And so, but that's part of your brand as an event. So what I did was we went the other way. We have fire. We have this big stage. Past years, we've had this 180-foot screen. We bring in big, exciting speakers. That's my brand. So now the event, we're known for producing a high-end event. We're known for bringing in big speakers. That becomes part of my brand. So now we've elevated ourselves and separated us from the pack of everybody else. So it's kind of like the book, everybody uses red ocean, blue ocean, right? You've got this red ocean over here. Everybody's running the same event. Then you just create your own blue ocean. And that's what we've done with our conference, right? And now there's a couple other people trying to replicate what we're doing, but we're the market leader, right? We've already taken that space. And now everybody, the best thing they can do is copy us, but we're 10 steps ahead because we have the systems and processes in place, and we've learned those lessons, and we know why we didn't do things a certain way because we learned it the hard way, right? And that's invaluable. But you have to have a brand. You have to have a feel for your event. You look at some of the winning events in whatever space it is. You have Collision, right? That has a certain look and feel. You've got even 10x GrowthCon. Speaking of Grant Cardone, right? That's got a feel. That has a brand. You have to have that brand for your event. So once you have that brand, that look and feel, like how you want the experience to be for your audience, because it really is an experience. That's what events are. Now you have to figure out the digital side. So remember how I said I had a bad experience with ad agencies, and everybody talked a big talk and nobody could really follow through. It's like digital media is so important, right? You're probably, if you're going for a regional type of event, or like if you're going local with like a 500-person event, you can do billboards. So you can do local radio. But if you're going national, you're not going to run a national billboard campaign, right? And the best way to reach a large number of people is through digital media, right? It's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, whatever it is. Though LinkedIn hasn't worked out very well for us, but definitely Meta. So Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube has been the workhorses for our ad campaigns. But in order to have the ad campaigns and be able to run it effectively, you have to have the revenue. So you have to price your tickets at a level where you can actually produce enough revenue to cover your ad spend, the cost of fulfilling the event, and all that type of stuff. So here's another thing for the smaller events. 100 people events, 200 people events, generally speaking, they're not charging enough for the event, and that's And now they have trouble scaling because now they can't run an ad campaign because they're basically losing their shirt running this small event. You have to hit that scale, that critical mass, and be charging sufficient revenue in order to put it back into the event. So this all kind of breaks down. And in order to do that, these are the three things I look at, okay? So I call it the 3 S's of events. All right, we got speakers, we have sponsors, and we have spectators. This is your audience. All right, I'll just put audience. All right, so the questions you have to ask yourself are, well, who are the speakers that are actually going to attract my target audience? Who does my target audience want to hear from, right? And then after that, it's what type of event do you have to build that's going to attract those speakers? Remember how I said, Kevin O'Leary won't show up for 100 people, but he definitely will show up for 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000. That's the type of event you have to build, right? Because if for us, when I pick up the phone, I say, hey, listen, this is my event. Usually the speaker has seen our sizzle reels, all that type of stuff. They're already interested in coming to our event because they see the brand, they see the type of production value that we have. That's really important. Once you get the speakers in, then you have to ask yourself, well, who are the sponsors who are willing to pay a premium to tap into my audience? Because here's the thing. In your survey, you're going to ask your audience, well, what are your main pain points? The main big ones, like the really big ones, you're going to cover with your event content. But there's going to be so many other pain points, the ancillary pains that your event can't cover. So for example, let's say you're running an event for gym owners, hypothetically, for gym owners. Let me draw this out. So we'll have gyms. And your event is going to tailor their biggest pain point, which is probably customer acquisition. And then the secondary pain point, I'm just making this up. The secondary pain point for this audience may be programs, pricing, and scaling it, right? Those are going to be the main pain points. But there's going to be things that these owners need, or a small portion of your audience. So let's say this is your audience 100%. Maybe 30% of that audience of gym owners, they need help with payroll. Maybe 25% of that audience needs help with marketing. Right? You're not covering that with your main content here on the main stage. So maybe a sponsor, a payroll company, can come and sponsor your event. They're tapping into their ideal target market, and you're also helping serve by having that payroll company there. You're serving a need that your audience has, or a portion of your audience that you're not able to cover on your own. That's the power of aligning sponsors to your event. Now, it doesn't make sense to have an ice cream company come in and sponsor your gym. Well, I love ice cream, but maybe for the gym owner, it doesn't make sense to have an ice cream company come in and sponsor it and give out free ice cream samples. But maybe it makes more sense to have a protein shake company, a protein powder company come in and do that sponsorship, because now they're in front of their target audience, and all the gym owners are going to be selling supplements at their gym as another revenue stream. That's how we do sponsorship. But before you do that, you have to have your speakers, right? You have to have your main speakers lined up, and that's going to help bring in the sponsors. So I call this, let me erase this. I call it gravitational pull. Okay, this is what you need. So our first year, when we had 0, we literally started at 0. I knew I needed to create enough critical mass to get our ball over the top of the hill so it can run down. So I call it gravitational pull, because I kind of liken this to a solar system being born, a sun being born. So you start with a nebula, right? So you've got gases, all the material in space. This is how a sun is formed. Now you need to pull all of this stuff and bring it together and crunch it together so it starts having mass. Right? So this is what you do. You get your first couple speakers lined up here, and that brings you a little bit more mass. Then you get 1 or 2 main sponsors that have credibility in the space. Now you have more mass, right? And then once you have a venue, now you have even more mass. Now you have a body in space that's going to attract and start bringing other objects into its orbit. So now you have a sun with the solar system. That's how I think about events. So if you're a 100-person event right now, you don't have gravitational pull, but you have to find a way to get it, right? You have to find that way to get those first couple of key speakers, the first couple of key sponsors, and now you can leverage that to then go out to the greater marketplace. So if you're talking with other speakers, it's like, hey, listen, I've got this whatever speaker it is that everybody knows and everybody wants to be on stage with. So your pitch to the other speaker is, hey, listen, I'm running this event with so-and-so, do you want a chance to be on stage with them and speak at my event? Because now with our conference, we literally get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of applications for people wanting to speak at my conference. Hundreds. We don't have to go looking. Though my approach is I still cherry pick all the speakers that I want on my stage because I want to maintain a certain level and a certain standard. And we're always looking to improve that. But you want to be in that position where you've got a great event, you've got a great brand, you've got great speakers, and everybody wants to be a part of it. And now they're asking you to appear on stage rather than you chasing them. That's the point you want to get to. Then you have sponsors. The first couple sponsors, you get them in. Now all the other sponsors you go to, it's like, hey, listen, I've got, we're running this event, this audience, it's this keynote speaker coming in, and we already have these big name sponsors that you would recognize. So, we want to just talk to you about the possibility of you tapping into our audience as well and growing your business. That's great because now those sponsors, those key ones, are going to give you credibility. Because the biggest challenge I had the first year was once I had this stuff together, once I got that out of the way and had gravitational pull, I still didn't have a track record yet. So a lot of people, especially online, because there's online haters like, oh, it's a scam. Kevin O'Leary's not going to show up. The event's not going to happen. You get all that garbage online. And same thing with sponsors. It's like, oh, well, I just want to wait and see you do your first one. It's an uphill battle. But the more key sponsors you get on board with trusted brand names, the more keynote speakers that you get that actually align to your audience, the more that's going to help you fight that battle the first year. So now your second year, you can leverage that and really scale it. But a lot of people, when they come in and ask us questions, when we're working with events to consult with them, they'll ask about audience first. They're like, oh, I just want to sell a bunch of tickets. And I have to say, oh, hold on a second. We need to take care of speakers and sponsors first before we even worry about the spectator. We have our survey data, so we know who we're targeting, but I don't worry about selling tickets until we have the speaker lined up and we have the sponsors starting to get lined up. Because now we have the revenue coming in from sponsorship, we have the speakers, we have that gravitational pull. The ticket sales are the very last thing we worry about. And that's where we take that revenue and drive it into an ad campaign that actually converts. There's a very specific way that we do this. And what I found consulting with other events is, a lot of people just don't have a good handle on how to run ads and convert them to ticket sales. So they'll run ads to a buy now page, and then they're like, no, nobody's ever buying a ticket. There's just so many things wrong with how it's being run. We figured it out because we brought everything in-house, and we learned the hard way. We spend a lot of money on ads, and we're always testing and always improving exactly how we do things. But that's the three S's: speakers, sponsors, spectators. And if you're running like 100-person event, chances are you don't have a handle on those 3 S's. It's not strong enough, and you don't have that gravitational pull. All right? Does that make sense? So, just to wrap this up a little bit in terms of scaling, because it's a grind. It's not easy, and it's a lot of stress. I've got more gray hairs on the side of my head because of the stress with running this thing. But the benefit definitely outweighs all the stress and the risk. Because if you stay small as a 100-person event, you will never attract the big name speakers. You will never scale, and your event will actually go down. So what happens is if you have 100 people right here coming to your event and you don't add in any new fresh blood, your event's going to go down and down and down because you lose people with attrition. I'm working with an event right now where the past, I think it's 4 years, their attendance has dropped and the number of paid tickets because they've started having to give out freebie tickets, which is the worst thing you can do, right? Because now you attract a lower quality audience. So we're working on them right now to turn the ship around and drive their audience back up through our methods, our systems, our strategies, and actually increase their ticket revenue So now they can fulfill on a better event that's going to attract more people the next year and more people the next year, and so on and so on. That's why you have to scale. 100 people to like 300-400 people, that's no man's land in events. That's where events go to die. You have to get yourself as fast as possible through that number. With us, we just skipped it. We went from zero to 1,000. But you have to get through that no man's land as fast as possible. So maybe your first year you run 200 people, 300 people, but you have to get to 1,000 people as fast as you can, and then you can scale and double if you want to from then on. But yeah, you have to get through, because here at 300 people, 200 people, you don't have the revenue and you can't grow the team that you need, because it takes a team. Like our conference team, it's a large team to fulfill on, thousands and thousands of people and doing all the sponsorship, all that type of stuff. It takes people, and people need to get paid. So you need the revenue coming in to pay for the team, who's then going to scale your event. But 200 people, 300 people, 100 people, you don't have the infrastructure, you don't have the revenue, you don't have the audience, you're too small. So 10x it. What I would do, and this is exactly what I did, is I set the blueprint for a 1,000-person event, and I acted on it. Now, was I gunning for more the first year? Yes. Did the government help me? No, because we had a second lockdown, and I think we had about like 4 or 5 weeks before the conference to sell all of our tickets, because everybody was scared that we were going to go back into lockdown, right? So that was just a fact of living in Canada, living in Ontario with the policies we had at the time. But like, I guarantee if we didn't have the lockdowns, we would have hit like the 1,500 target that I had. But I set the sights high, I built the framework around it, and we executed. And I'm much better off for having done that and got to 1,000 people the first year than staying stuck at 100. So I see a lot of people, being like, oh yeah, I just want to start small, run 50 people, 100 people. Oh yeah, what's your goal with this? Oh yeah, I eventually want to fill like stadiums. Okay, yeah, but like running the 100-person event is not going to help you. It's only going to hurt you. It's taking you in the wrong direction. So you have to start putting things in place now, the systems, the frameworks that are actually scalable. Because if you've based your event around like a framework of 100 people, it's going to break really, really quickly as you start to scale, and you're going to have to start from scratch all over again. So you might as well use the right system that is scalable, that is proven to scale from the get-go, so you're on the right track and you don't have to reinvent the wheel in month 2 as you're starting to grow this thing, right? So if you are looking at getting some help with your event, so if you're running a workshop, a conference, and you're 200-300 people, and you're looking for some help to scale this thing, go to theconferenceaccelerator.com, and we can actually help you. That's what we're doing now. Like we're taking our systems, like we've learned the hard way with this stuff, and now we're helping other events scale up using what we do, because like we've been able to do it. Let us help you do the same thing. So go to theconferenceaccelerator.com. You can book a call with our team, and then we'll see if you're a fit for what we do, and vice versa, and we can go from there. So yeah, just remember, scaling events go to die at 100 people. You have to get to 1,000 people as fast as possible, and to do that, you need audience data, you need the brand, you need the marketing, and you need to focus on the 3 S's, get enough gravitational pull to attract everybody else, and that's what you're going to use to scale your event. So I'll see you next week for the Event Domination show. Really looking forward to growing this show and talking about everything we're doing behind the scenes with all of our events and workshops. So I'll see you guys later. Happy 4th to the Americans, and I'll see you next week.